Your Mishnah.
Starting Kuf follow from the base by the Mishnah. So the issue is about the testimony that a woman's husband died, that she should be able to remarry. And so far we had the Allah about Eid Echad. And she herself believed that. Echad believed. Not immediately died. Yes, as you know. Here it says, even if his source of information is only because he heard women that were talking. He heard women talking that a certain man died. That's enough. It means his source of information is that he only knows it from men, women, even women talking. That's enough. Also, children. If you hear children talking, we're going to the funeral and the burial of this person, a certain person. So they also they'll not come back to Bezin and say, we know that this person died because we heard the kids talking about it. The Mishnah continues, the person who's coming to tell us, this testimony, or the person who heard it from, the source of this information, no difference if he's coming to testify or he's not coming to testify. We'll see in a second what does it mean he's not coming to testify. And so far it means, as you just said, the case of the women or the children, they're not testifying, they're saying the news. So that's good enough. And if he comes to testify, surely that he's coming to testify also.
Miskavin means
he's intending to testify. We'll see a little bit more in the Gemara what the word might mean. But the word means intending. Intending what? You understand? It means he's intending to testify. The Rebbe says that a Jew, over there, there's no difference if he's testifying or not testifying. And here the way it says it, even if he's intending. But the point is that a guy is not believed if he's coming to testify. Guy is only if he's not coming to testify. And that more is explain what that means. The Maskana is going to mean that it means he's just talking out of innocence. He's just telling over the story. It doesn't mean to have any ramifications of his words. Halachic ramifications. But the point is to say that a Jew is Neman. And there are both sides. Both if he's coming to testify, he's believed because he's an aid. If he's not coming to testify, then he's believed because he's saying the news. Talking by his innocence. A guy is not Neman if he comes to testify. We don't trust him. He might have some ulterior motive, might be lying. But if he's coming just talking as out of his innocence, so then we believe him. So that was the third point. That was the first point of the Mishnah was even women talking. The second point is even children talking. In both these cases, we're not coming to testify, they're just coming to say the news. And at the end, it talks about a guy that is not believed if he's coming to testify, only if he's not coming to say news out of his innocence, not intending to have any kind of halachic ramifications. By a Jew, he's believed both ways. Yes, please.
Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba
is saying
that even if he has intention, what?
First by a guy. The main point that Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba is coming to say
it says that guy.
That's by Yisrael.
Yisrael. Yes, so what does it mean?
So I'll come back in a second. But the end of the point is that a guy is only believed if he's not coming to test, not intending. A guy is only believed if he's not intending. If he's intending, we're not going to believe him. By a Jew,
what does that mean?
So we'll take it.
If he's just saying it as a conversation, somebody overheard saying.
He's saying
not to testify. I see. He's saying something that has nothing to do with testifying about it.
Right. I would hold on because the Gemara is going to talk about two possibilities, but we're jumping to the Maskana already. The conclusion is that he's not believed if he's going to testify at all. He's just going to be believed if he starts saying news. As we'll see, many examples in the Gemara, many stories in the Gemara talk about just saying out of his innocence, he's saying the news. He comes back and he says somebody died.
You get that from the fact that it says miskavin. Before we said miskavin meant that he wants to testify. Here he's miskavin means he didn't have in mind to say testimony. No.
Also, miskavin is whatever miskavin meant before means over here. Also, by a Jew, it's good, even though he's coming to intend. He intends, and by a guy, it's not good if he intends.
Ein edasu.
By a guy who intends, it's not good. So when is it good? When he's not intending.
Oh.
A Jew is good both if he intends, if he doesn't intend, no difference. And by a guy, it's only good if he doesn't intend.
That's the deal. He doesn't say that, right?
Right, it says that if he intends, it's not good. So we're supposed to understand that it's good if he does not intend.
Okay.
And what does the word intend mean? Intend what? So we said some sort of a pshat, which the Gemara is going to say, but the Gemara is going to have two choices. It'll be in stages, so we'll go according to the Gemara. First, the Gemara goes back to the children. The Gemara doesn't have anything to say about the women, you hear women talking, so you're allowed to go to the Bezin and say, I heard women talking that Tony died, then that's a good testimony and his wife could marry. Then it says about the children. And the Gemara says the case was that the other children talking were going to the Hesper, they're going to the Kura, that somebody died, a certain person died. The Gemara has problems with that, but maybe even though they said they're going to go, they didn't end up going. It means even though they heard news that somebody died and they said we're going to go to the funeral, maybe that's not enough testimony, that's not enough evidence that he really died. There was a rumor, but if they didn't actually go to the funeral, so then the Gemara thinks that shouldn't be enough even talking, not only testimony, they're not testifying, they're just going to say they're going. But maybe it was a rumor, but to be able to say that he definitely died. We're on the way back already. Not that they're going to the funeral. Going to the funeral maybe it didn't happen. And there was no funeral because they got the wrong news. But if they said they came back from the funeral, you could trust them that they know what they're talking about, then you could say testimony that this person died. The Mars the Kasha, children have a big imagination. When they go to a funeral, they come back, it doesn't mean anything. The Doma counts about maybe a grasshopper died, their toy grasshopper, and they gave it a name, Ruvain ben Shimon, and they're making a whole Levaya, and they come back, and so maybe that's not it happens to be the hit on the name of a certain Ruvain ben Shimon. But Sikol El Shmei, they made that name for him. It doesn't mean that there was really such a person that died. The more answers, the family came to Rabbanan was some came to Safdan was some. They're recounting the whole funeral, and they say that the different big rabbis were there, which rabbi was there, and who said the speeches. So that their imagination doesn't go so far that they should make up on the grasshopper that Rabbi Yashu came. That they wouldn't say. Their imagination doesn't go so far. So the point is that if you know for sure that they said they went to a funeral, you could of a certain person, you could assume that it's true, and you could testify in Bezdin that you heard news from the children that this person died and his wife could remarry. By Goy, it says in the Mishnah, Goy is only believed if he does not intend. If he intends, then it's not a good testimony. What does that mean? So we spoke about it, but now was going to take two possibilities. They do say this. The word niskaven doesn't say niskaven what, he intended what. So the Gemara explains, Shmuel at least is going to say that if he intended to permit the woman to get married, he knew that his testimony, the guy knew, he's coming to Bezdin and say that this person died, his wife should be permitted to marry. So that's when we don't trust him. But if he came not for the purpose of marrying off his wife, just to testify, he is coming to testify. He means, according to this Pshat of the Gemara, when it says miskaven is not good, miskaven ain't do say this, that he still could be miskaven to say testimony, but as long as he's not testifying in order to permit the wife. Maybe the other reasons he's testifying in Bezdin. He comes to Bezdin and says, you should know that this and this person died. That's called a testimony. As long as he's not coming to the purpose of permitting the wife to get married, maybe other things about the Yerusha, other reasons why Bezdin has to know that's okay. Even if he's coming to testify, as long as he's not coming to testify to permit the wife to get married, you could trust him. If that'll be the pshat, how do we know what he's coming for? So the Gemara says what he says. If he comes to Bezdin and he says certain person died, Tony died, and therefore you should permit his wife to get married, that means he's coming for the purpose of marrying off the wife, and you can't trust him. What's the case that he is believed? He says that comes to Bezdin and says that Tony died, but he doesn't say what the ramifications are. Then you're allowed to trust him. That was what Shmuel said. Shmuel said that if he comes to testify, as long as he doesn't come to testify permission for the wife to remarry, you're allowed to trust him. That's what Shmuel said. Also, Shlokish said the same thing as Shmuel. Mamish the same thing as Shmuel. It's only not acceptable if he came to testify to permit her to remarry, but if he came for testimony, and other pieces of testimony came to Bezdin, it says he died, but he doesn't say what his intention is that the wife should remarry, you could trust him. But Rabbi Yochanan said, Rabbi Yochanan was going to argue. They say the word is shehitris that he was debating. They do say this. He also said the same thing. Rabbi Shai Bibi said the same thing as Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan. Shmuel and Shlokish. Rabbi Shai Bibi also said that it's only a problem to believe the guy if he's coming to permit the wife to remarry. But if he's coming to testify, you could accept him. But the point is, the 85 Zekanim didn't agree. The 85 Zekanim said no. So we're not going to pass them like Shmuel and Rish Lakish and Rashai Beribi. We're going to pass them like the 85 Chachamim that said that he's not believed even if he's coming to testify not to permit the wife. So when is he believed? That's now we're getting to the crux of the issue. So when is the guy going to be believed? Till now we thought as long as he's not coming to permit the wife to marry, you're allowed to trust him. But now we're saying no. Any kind of testimony comes to the president and says, you should know, I'm testifying that this person died, you don't trust him. So when do you trust him? Which we could derive from that if he's not miskaven, it is a edus edus. What's the case that the guy is believed to say? The answer is when Mesiach Lefitumo. The word Mesiach means to talk. Sach means to talk. Tumo means his innocence. Means he's not coming like in conversation. He's not coming conversational. He's coming just to announce that in the news. He's saying news, but not that it's coming for any kind of halachic ramifications. Then you're allowed to trust him. That's a concept called Mesiach Lefitumo. Someone's talking with his innocence, with no particular intention that he wants to accomplish with his talk. So then he's more trustworthy. A guy is not believed if he's coming to testify. He is believed if he's talking in his innocence. And now more brings a couple of stories. We're gonna have a lot of stories of these kind of cases today. I just started off the story with the green. The guy came and he said, who's from the family of Chivoy? Who's from the family of Chivoy? Chivoy died. Means that he just came to tell the news. He knew that Chivoy died and nobody else knew. He came to town and said, Chivoy died. But he didn't have any intention for testimony. He just came to say the news that the Chivoy died. Rav Yosef Rav Yosef allowed his wife of Chivoy to be married because that's called Mesiach Lefitumo. That's a case that the Mishnah says the guy is believed. Another story. Why they the parashas Riza the Shachim? A guy came and said, woe to the fast horseman that was in Pumbedisa, that he died. It means it was in Pumbedisa there was a known horseman that died, and the guy came and said that he died. And again, they trusted that testimony, either Rav Yosef or Rava, that's a good, not a testimony, it is a testimony. He didn't mean a testimony, he just meant news. So that's good, and that's called Mesiach Lefitumo, another case of where the guy is believed. Another story. A guy came and said, who's from the house of Chasa? Chasa drowned. Now, again, it's Mesiach Lefitumo, and he should be believed. But the problem is, this is going back to a side issue, that even if we have testimony that Chasa drowned, we said that Maim Shein himself, yesterday's Gemara says that when there's endless waters, even if he drowned, we're not taking for sure that he died, because it could be that he got out someplace and we don't know about him. So that's the side point. Going back to yesterday's Gemara now, that even though Mesiach Lefitumo does allow us to believe the fact that he drowned, but the case was there's Maim Shein himself. So she shouldn't remarry. It's good. Even though Mesiach Lefitumo, we do believe that's only if they would say that he died. But they didn't say that he died. They said that he drowned. And drowning in an endless ocean doesn't permit her to marry. So, but the story goes on. Rav Nachman, Rav Nachman, not in Bezdin. Rav Nachman someone, he heard the news that Chasa drowned. He said, like, Elokim was Lashon Shvuah, like I swear, like I could swear by Hashem's name that he was eaten up. The fish must have eaten him up, like woe to Chasa that he got eaten up by fish. He drowned. And what's the end of somebody that drowns? Eventually, the fish eat him up. So, the wife of Chasa, she took Rav Nachman's words halachically that she could assume that he's dead, even though he said that Maim Shein himself. You're not supposed to assume that he's dead. It could be he got out someplace and the fish didn't eat him up. Maybe he didn't die. But and Rav Nachman didn't mean to pass on anything. He just was talking that the fish ate him up. Because of Rav Nachman's words that he said that he must have been eaten up, she took it seriously and she got married. They didn't stop her. Nobody told her that she should get divorced now. Amar Ravashi, this goes back to yesterday's Gemara. From here, we could derive that the Mishnah says that she's not allowed to. Yes, please. That which we learned in the Mishnah, that when it's endless waters, she's not allowed to marry. That means she's not allowed to marry. But if she did, even though she wasn't supposed to, we're not going to make her divorce. We said this yesterday already. Now we're saying it again. And this is really the source. Yesterday's Gemara, we didn't know where the Gemara got it from. But here it says so, that even though she shouldn't have gotten married, but if she did, we're not going to stop her. It means it's true. Mesiach Lefitumo is believed. But here, it must believe that he drowned. But drown's not enough because even though he drowned, it could be that he got out someplace. So we wouldn't have relied on that testimony. But since she got married, we're not going to take her out.
And she got married because of what Rav Nachman said.
That she heard that Rav Nachman was talking, but he wasn't coming to say Allah she should get married. He was just talking amongst his family or his friends. What?
He said the fish ate him.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean Allah the fish ate him. That means that probably the fish ate him.
And she took that to mean
that I could assume that, yeah.
Even though she shouldn't have.
Right, and then the Allah is even though she did wrong.
Because it was a water without.
Right, Lam Shem Lam himself. Rav Vega points out over here that he said Elohim. He said Hashem's name, like my God, like by God's name, that he was beaten up by the fish. Why was he so sure to be able to say such a strong term? If the Allah is, we have to be kosher that he's still alive.
Yeah.
So he says that it's really the Rove says that he did that. Of course, probably 90%, 95%, he did get eaten up. But there's a chumrah that we machmed that a woman shouldn't get married l'chatchila because small chance that he might be alive. So even today, Shmuel also you got to say. Means the fact. We'll say the fact is that, and even with the Yevad, we allow her to stay married. It's only l'chatchila that she shouldn't marry because that far chash that he might be alive. So even a lot of swear such a thing. It's enough fact that I could even say a shmur. That you're not but still we're going to be machmed that she shouldn't marry l'chatchila. The Gemara says another point. Some say a little different version. In Rav Nachman the Visu, that Rav Nachman said that she could get married. Not just that he said the fish ate him up and she got married without permission. Rav Nachman said she may get married. And why is that? Omar, because Rav Nachman said Chas Gavar Rabba, Isay, and he said the Solar Kol Islay, the Milsa. That Chas is a famous person. We said yesterday also by Sober Rabban, and here the Gemara says a Gavar Rabba, he's a famous person, and if he would have come up someplace, we would have heard about it. Which the Gemara said yesterday also. Rav Ashi thought so that a person who's a Sober Rabban is Talmud Chacham. Here it says now Talmud Chacham, only even any kind of famous person. If he would have come up someplace, we would have gotten news, and therefore we know for sure that he didn't get out of the water and he's dead.
What's the Isya?
Where's that? Yes. Gavar Rabba Isay.
Okay, you said Gavar Rabba. You said he's.
Oh, I made a mistake. Chasa Gavar Rabba Isay.
Yeah.
He is a big man. And he said.
And then he continues. He kept speaking, or that's the end of what he said.
He continued speaking. Let's have to find the place over here. Why did it jump so much? I don't know.
Oh, and if he would have come out, we would have heard of it. Is that what you're saying?
And then the Gemara says it's not true.
There would have been, and that's the end.
Right, but then the Gemara says he's wrong. Below he, it's not so. Nothing's wrong.
And what's the milsa? Oh, the thing, the issue. The thing.
He would have heard the issue, but that he's alive. But below he, it's not true. If Nachman's wrong, lo shna gavar rabba, lo shna lav gavar rabba. There's no difference if he's a famous man, not a famous man. Lachatchila, the ever you do allow her to remain married, even if he's not famous, and lachatchila you don't allow her to get married, even if he is famous. That's what we said yesterday also. The more yesterday got it from here. Here's where the main Gemara is that the Gemara does not agree that a famous person is different, and it comes out also that with the Yevet she may stay married. Another story about Messiah Chutuma. Ahu goy to overcome Allah in Israel. Ketolas pasta. This is the words that he told the Jew, just to make clear what he told. He told the Jew, Ketolas pasta. 1 second. Did it go well? He told the Jew. There's all this what he told him. He told the Jew. This is all the quotation that he told the Jew. He told the Jew, cut the aspasta. Aspasta is some kind of vegetation. It's usually the vegetable part of a wheat plant. That when the wheat grows, so until it makes the grains, so it's also usable as animal food. And they would cut it, and then it would grow again. Shachas. So I think that's what it is. But anyway, he told somebody to do it on Shabbos. He told the Jew to cut this vegetation and give it to his animals. Chevoy is my animals. To give and if he buy animals on Shabbos, he told me Michal Shabbos. And if not, I'm going to kill you. And don't think that I don't keep to my word. The same way that if I'm going to kill you, the same way I killed somebody, Plony, also a Jew, that I told him to cook for me on Shabbos and he didn't cook for me and I killed him. And if you don't listen to me, I'm going to kill you also. That's what he told the Jew. I'm supposed to listen, it's a that's a sugya about yevamos and nefesh. But over here, it's pretty, I don't think it's helping anything. If anything, yeah. So anyway, so the wife of the first person that was quoted, he said, I'm going to kill you like I killed Plony. So the wife of Plony said, the guy said that he killed my husband. So she wanted to take that as testimony with that she can get married. Some of the wife of that Ploni, that guy that he killed, she heard, and she came to Abaye. Is she allowed to be married? She heard testimony from the guy, not testimony. He just was talking in his own business, and maybe I could rely that my husband is dead. Obviously, he didn't come back for a long time. She's wondering where he is, and the guy said, "I killed him." Shahisa plus Wrigley, and Abaye kept her waiting for 3 regalim. He said he didn't have an answer. She came to Abaye, "Can I be married?" Abaye didn't know, and he didn't give an answer. 3 regalim. The Pashut 3 regalim means the 3 Yom Tovim. Rashi has a pshat here that it means 3 yard sites. Everyone likes the closest Rashi about a yard site. Rashi says, "Shuva Sagonim Basasi Kahani Rigli Damoro Yani Yom Shemeis Bodam Godo Kogam Oso V'Chlodo Umideshana B'Shana Kishamagia Osa Yom B'Skapsan Tamid Chachamim Mikol Sliva V'Vom Al Kibro Mishar Om V'Oshe V'Yeshiva Sham." Famous Rashi about a yard site. Today's the yard site of the here it says that Adam Gadol died, so they make for his honor every year on that day, an anniversary. So people come, Tamid Chachamim, they come to his kever with the rest of the people to learn over there, Rosh Hashem Yeshiva. So this is a Rashi that says there was such a thing as a yard site minute. They came to go to the kever. What does the party have to do going to the kever? Rashi doesn't say make a party. Rashi says to go to the no parties. Rashi says to go to the kever and Rosh Yeshiva Sham.
Yes, I went to the camera.
So here, so he waited anyway. Abaye pushed it off the answer. He didn't know the answer, so he was pushing it off, and he didn't know. So Avad Rabba advised the woman to go to Rav Yosef. Abaye didn't know, so go to Rav Yosef, that he's sharp like a knife, so maybe he'll be able to find you a heter. And she went to him, to Rav Yosef, and he brought a ride from the following brisa. It says, "Boy, shall you mocha peres b'shuk? Rama peres alalu shall olahim shall azekahim shall not revoyhim Rama klum." Why? That a guy said that he's not trying to sell something. He's trying to sell produce, fruit, and he says that this fruit is from the first 3 years of the tree's growth, which means really it's not. It's asa. He didn't mean to say that. He's coming to say that's what the Muslims say in a second. Either it means that it was shamor, that it was guarded, and he meant to say that it's good, that it's guarded. Really, it was guarded during Shemitah is not good. Shamor, Beneva, that shamor, if it was guarded. Rashi holds that shamor is mutter, so Rashi doesn't have this shot. Rashi has another shot. But Taisha says that shamor is aser, and with machmir l'chat that shamor shvius. If the person guarded, he wasn't mafkir his field, so then the produce becomes aser. And Shanati Revoyen, that is from the 4th year, either the 3rd year, the first 3 years of the 4th year. So he meant to say that his produce is good. But we take that, if it's true, then it's also to eat, because all is also that the Revoy is also only in Yerushalayim. Azekah, if it's going to be Shamor, it's going to be also. Rashi also says, no, Pshat Azekah is the name of a city in Eretz Yisrael. He meant to say that it's Eretz Yisrael produce, really, we want to know if it is, then it's going to have halachic implications, and are we going to trust the good? So the Brisa says, you don't have to take you don't have to take it seriously, what the guy said. Why? He just meant to say how good his produce is. He meant to give a compliment to himself that it's for the first 3 years, it's good, it's fresh. I guess they held that they thought that it was better produce the first 3 years, the 4th year, or if it's from Azekah, if it's guarded, or from a certain place in Eretz Yisrael. But you don't have to believe him. Why? Because he has ulterior motive. That's the end of the Brisa. And what is going to be the issue by us? That when he said, "I'm going to kill you the same way I killed him," he's just being arrogant and aggressive, and he just doesn't mean anything. It could be he just wants to convince the Jew to be scared of him. So he says, "I'm going to kill you the same way I killed him," but it could be he never killed him. So you're not allowed to. So Yosef said you're not allowed to rely on that as a fact. That Masech Pitun one. This means Masech Pitun was only when he has no ulterior motive. But if you see he might have an ulterior motive, then you don't trust him. So this guy,
he was just exaggerating.
Exaggerating in order for his own benefit.
In the vineyard, he was
right. And therefore, back to the case of.
What did he say in the vineyard? I'm sorry.
He said that it's within the first 3 years, or the 4th year, or it's been guarded. This field has been guarded by a Jew. A case that we show more.
Okay.
So it comes out that this case with a guy, we suspect that even though he said, I'm going to kill you the way I killed him,
it had nothing to do with her getting married.
Even though it had nothing to do with her getting married, still we cannot trust him because he has a ulterior motive. He wants to make himself sound big. So we don't trust him. Next story. Abu Yudin Ish Sidon Amma. Abu Yudin said from the place of Sidon, maybe Tzidon, I'm not sure. He said the following story. He came back and said that, whoa, He says that there was a Jew and a guy going on the road, and the guy came and said, woe about the Jew that I was going with. He died, and I buried him. You see, they permitted the wife to get married. That's called Mashiach B'tumah. Another case of Mashiach B'tumah. He's not saying it for any kind of halachic ramifications. He's just saying we went together and he died. I buried him. He's just saying the news, so you're allowed to trust that and the woman may remarry. Another story. Shiv Ma'aseh B'Kola, Shiv B'nei Adam. Rashi says a chabura, a group of people. Shayim Halchim Antuchia. They were going to Antuchia, which Chavusa said that's in Turkey. A guy came and said, woe to that group of people that died, that I buried them. Again, we see as Tisha said, they permitted the wives to get married. That's considered a good Mashiach B'Tumah that the guys believed. Another story. 60 people were going to the siege of Beitar, maybe to help out. And the guy said, whoa, about the 60 people that were going on the road and they died, and I buried them. And again, we see as Tisha saying, 3 stories about trusting a guy, Mashiach B'Tumah.
But one thing different about all these is they're actually saying where you can find the body.
Right, but the body's not going to.
The first guy, he'll say, I killed him, that's what he said. But these people are saying, I buried him.
Right, but
so
it's not going to help us. It's not going to help us because we can't recognize the body anymore. It's many days, more than 3 days. We're not going to be able to testify, even if we would exhume them. That wouldn't help us because we can't recognize them anymore.
Yeah, but he wouldn't know that when he says it. He's actually saying, I know where you can find it. You can trust me because I can tell you where the body is, even if you won't recognize it, but still.
Okay, but they're not going to recognize it.
He
So
wouldn't know that when he says it.
he doesn't know that the body's not recognizable after a couple of days. It sounds like it's a long time already.
Mhm.
So I guess the guy also knows that after a while it's not recognizable. So the Gemara puts all these together that you're trusting the guy because he's Mashiach B'Tumah, and it doesn't. And like he's right, he's saying he doesn't even have to have the evidence of the grave. He just says that he got killed, and I don't know where he is. Also, if you don't have any kind of ulterior motive, you're allowed to, and he's not coming to testify. You're allowed to rely on the information that it's true, and even that the woman should be married. The Mishnah continues. Now we're talking about the issue of how when he recognized him. I saw him dead. But he didn't have sunlight. It only had Oraner. It was at night, and he had the lamp, the light of a lamp, or it was light of the moon. Was that enough light to be able to assume that he recognized what he saw? So yes, he could. That's enough. That's enough testimony. Even though he didn't have sunlight, he only had lamplight. The moonlight is good enough. The next point is that you could also marry off the woman, even if you don't know who it is, just a baskel. Baskel means a voice. And the Mishnah is going to say a story. It doesn't mean a heavenly voice. Sometimes baskel means a heavenly voice. Here it doesn't mean a heavenly voice. Here it means a person, but you don't know who's talking. And it means a story. Somebody stood on the top of a mountain. They saw a person standing on top of a mountain, and he said, somebody died from a certain place died, and they went to see who he is. They went and they couldn't find him. He went away. You see who is and they permitted that's enough, even though you don't know who the speaker is. But we don't assume that he had any ulterior motive. And if whatever reason he had to run away, it was dangerous, whatever the case was, and you don't know who it is, you're allowed to assume that he's saying the truth, and you're allowed to marry the woman. You have the information. Plony died. You know who it is. So you're allowed to marry off the woman because somebody, we don't know who it is, somebody testified.
That's below Matsu Sham.
Adam. They didn't find anybody.
They didn't find
Now it says a thing on himself. There's somebody in Salmon that we saw him far away, we didn't know. He said his name, a snake bit me, I'm dying. And he wanted to announce it before he died. He wanted people to know that he's not dead. Once they come, they're not going to be able to recognize him. They didn't recognize him, I guess, for whatever reason, they weren't able to recognize him, or they didn't know who he was, or whatever. And hopefully we see sister. That's also enough to marry his wife, even though you don't know who he is. But since he made a declaration, there's no reason to think that he's lying, and therefore you can marry off his wife.
What does V'chalchu mean, the first one?
They went to try to find him. This person's saying, "I'm dying. Snake bit me." So they went
because he's on top of the mountain.
He was there. He was dark. Whatever. It doesn't say here. It doesn't say nothing. It says in Salmon. People heard him. He's dying.
In Salmon, they heard him yelling, and so they went to hear him.
They went to see him. Went to see him, or they found him, but they didn't recognize him.
Oh, they didn't recognize him.
And that's enough. That's enough to be able to marry off his wife.
Okay.
Amar Rabba, first white line. Amar Rabba Bashmul. Tana Beishama Yomim Ein Masin Al Pi Basko. Beisolomim Masin Al Pi Basko. Our mission says that you may trust the voice even if they don't know who it is. Like it said a story that you heard a voice and you went, you didn't see anybody over there. Somebody said it. You're allowed to trust that voice. Beishama says not. So this our Mishnah just says one opinion that you're allowed to, doesn't say any names. The Brisa says, or Rabbi Bashmul said that the Brisa says, according to Bishama, you're not allowed to rely on that, but still says you may. And the Gemara asks, what do we gain from the Brisa? The Mishnah says that you're allowed to, and the Brisa says the whole Bishama Yisrael. You don't care about Bishama's opinion because Bas not Yisrael anyway. So what is the difference if Bishama says you're not allowed to? The Gemara answers, don't be worried if you find another source where it says you're not allowed to, don't make a cash out of it, because now I know that it's Bishamai. So if you find the Brisa that says so you should know that that's Bishamai. You know, possible like it. Don't get nervous if you're going to find the Brisa that says an opposite opinion. Don't think you're making a mistake and have to answer the kashas. It's Bishamai. So it's important to know that Bishamai is dissenting opinion. And even though we don't pass on Bishamai, it's good to know that you shouldn't get confused if they find other such sources. Which is really a Mishnah in Edius that says the same thing. The reason why we say over Das Yachid is in order that if you do find such opinion, you'll know that it's a Das Yachid and you won't get confused. Next Gemara, this was the case of that voice. He went on the mountain, he went to see who it is, he didn't find anybody, and you're allowed to trust it. Maybe it wasn't a person. If it was a person, so then you can trust him. But if it was a shade, a demon, and they also they're liars, the shade them or the demons are liars. So you can hear a voice and you don't know who it is, and maybe it's a shade. How can you trust it? I'm a Vidam Rav, Shalom, the Musadim. That you saw the image of a person, it was dark, but you saw an image of a person, it doesn't look like a shade. But the Gemara says, no, they look like a person. In Unami Damu, they do look like a person. So if you just see the image, you don't see openly if he's a shade or not, so then he might be a person. It means the image that you just see in the, what's it called, the silhouette? What is that word? Silhouette. So that wouldn't be a proof that he's not a shade. He might be a shade. I don't know if maybe he has wings, but he put the wings behind his back, something like that. You can't see just by the form that he's not a shade. The answer is the chazul le'bevuah. They saw his reflection. And the Gemara thinks at this point that the shadim don't have a reflection. They don't have a shadow. Something's mysterious about them. But the Gemara says, in Unami Yislo they do have a shadow. The Gemara answers, the chazul le'bevuah. They saw him by the shadow of a shadow, which I don't know what that means. I saw them before she was down the Ritva that says that when a person is in a certain angle, so there's a main shadow and then there's a lighter shadow. I guess you have to go in the sun and notice that sometimes a person has two shadows. So they don't have the lighter shadow. They only have one shadow. And he saw over here, and the Mara Sakasha, maybe they also have that. Maybe they also have a shadow of a shadow. Yonas and Shida himself told me. They don't have a shadow of a shadow. They don't have the light shadow, they only have a strong shadow. One strong shadow. So that was the kasha about a shade, and we answered only in a certain case we have no sign that it's a shade. Otherwise, you wouldn't believe it. The most another kasha, but then what's Sarah? Maybe it's a woman who's her co-wife. It means we have 4 people that are interested in messing her up. So now we don't know what it is. Maybe it's going to be the Sarah, maybe it's going to be the daughter-in-law, the mother-in-law. You don't know what it is. So you didn't find it. You heard a voice. Maybe the whole intention is only to mess her up. The more answers, Tana the very small, but Shasa Sakana, Kosmer knows not to be shame even. In times of danger from the goyim, it's hard to get so you can't. It's important for women to be able to get a get if the husband wants to give them. So then you're allowed to write and give the get even if you don't know that this is the person. If we don't have enough time to verify all the information that comes in. Somebody comes and says that this is my name and this is my wife and I want to give her a get. So you're allowed to write it even though you don't know who it is. It could be that it's a fake. Usually at times of peace, you don't trust this thing. You have to verify who are you. Bring testimony, verification who you want. But times of sakana, we can't afford to be so strict. So we're more lenient. So too over here, it's just sasa sakana. Aguna over here means not sasa sakana, but it's an aguna. If you're not going to be able to rely on this testimony, so then she won't be able to remarry. So even though there's a small chash, maybe it's a tzara, but we're not going to be choshesh. Means with the right side, there's not such a chash that it's a tzara, so we don't have to be choshesh because we don't want to make the woman unable to remarry. The rest of the parak goes back to what we spoke about, the whole halacha that you're allowed to trust in Eid Echad. That the Eid Echad is believed that they had in the 10th parak, it came up again now. So you're allowed to trust the Eid Echad to marry a woman and believe that her husband died. But now we go back to the backstage, and it wasn't so simple, even though that's the halacha and we pass like that, but it wasn't so simple once upon a time. I'm Rabbi Kiva. When Rabbi Kiva said, when I went down to Nado was in Boba, in order to make a leap year. So usually you don't do that. You usually only make a leap year only in Eretz Yisrael. But there was a case why they couldn't do it in Eretz Yisrael, and Rabbi Kiva went to Nardon in order to do it over there. Anyway, when he went to Nardon, Matzasi Nechemia Ish Beis Li. Nechemia from the city of Beis Li found me, Rabbi Kiva, Amali, and Nechemia Ish Beis Li told me, Rabbi Kiva, Shamati Shem Nasin Nisa Isha Eretz Yisrael Al Pi Eidecha Ve'al Yidam Abba. I heard that in Eretz Yisrael the machmer not to trust the testimony of one aide to marry off a woman on his testimony that the husband died. Only Yidam Abba does it, and nobody else argues on it. Is that true? Numei Silo cannot dvar. And I told him, Numei Silo means like Amartilo, like the word Neum means to speak. No, Numei Silo cannot dvar. I said to him, yes, that's so. That only Yidam Abba is the one who's lenient to.
Cold?
No, it's not cold enough. That only Yidam Abba is the only one who asks like that to trust an aid echad to marry off a woman. Everybody else argues on it. Amali, Amolahem, Shmi. So you did Nechemia, Ish basically told them to keep it. Tell them, go back to Israel. You're going back anyway. Tell them in my name. Atem Yodim Shamadina Meshabeshes Begayasas, which the Gemara explained before means that you know that I can't come. It's hard for me. Otherwise, I come myself to tell the say this testimony, but I can't come because there are many legions, battalions that are on the roads. It's dangerous for me to go. I'm telling you, I have a Masorah from Abnil Azaken that you are allowed to trust in Eidah. It means he's backing up Avidah Nababa. You should listen to the way he says because he's right. That Abnil Azaken says that you're allowed to trust in Eidah to marry off a woman.
After the guy soaks, did you continue reading?
Yes.
I didn't hear it.
I just said the word Kach Mikublani Gram Gamil Azaken, Shemasdin Asish Al Pi.
What is Mikub?
Mikublani? I have a Masorah. I have a Kabbalah. I have
What did you say? Kach?
I said the word. I put the word Kach in. Kach Mikublani. I think that's what Bach probably says. That's what we had before. Where's the Bach over here? Yeah, puts in the word Kach.
Okay.
I have such a Masorah from Abnil Azaken that you're allowed to marry a woman on the testimony of one aide that her husband died. So that was the big news that came. So people came back to Israel. He told them. When I came and I said over this words to Rabbi Gamliel of Yavne, he said over Rabbi Gamliel Azaken, the grandfather, Samach, the Baba, he was very happy about it. We found somebody, colleague to read them above that also holds like that, and we can be Samach on that now, that you're allowed to marry off a woman with the testimony of one aide. And then Gamliel himself, Gamliel of Yavne, the one who told him to, he himself remembered this same Masorah of Rabbi Gamliel Azaken. That there were people that were killed in a place called Tel Arza, and Rabbi Gamliel Azaken Taka married off the wives on the testimony of one aide. So he himself also remembered the same thing as Nechemia Ish Beis Li said in the name of Gamliel Azaken. Rabbi Gamliel of Yavne also remembered that it to be so. So that's what happened. And then they started accepting the words of Yudim and Baba, like now we have Yudim and Baba and Rabbi Gamliel Azaken, and Rabbi Gamliel of Yavne also testifies in the name of Rabbi Gamliel Azaken, and now it became the way that they started marrying off a woman on the testimony of an aide, not only an aide echad, even aide mipi aide, mipi eved, mipi isha, mipi shefcha. Even if the witness only knows it from another witness, usually aide mipi aide is not good. If someone comes and says that somebody told me, usually a regular dinim ominous or any kind of dinim, you don't trust aide mipi aide. But here, you do trust aide mipi aide. And also, if an eved or an isha or a shefcha, all these people are neman to say testimony that the man died. We said before, a suffix in the Gemara, does that mean because since it's Avidah L'Gluya, since the lie will come out, so maybe they're saying the truth, or maybe because Isha Baka Mitzvah, that the woman herself is not going to rely on it only if she finds out because the consequences are going to be great. So that's the halacha. So here we have the background that not everybody agreed to it, even though that's the halacha. We said it a long time ago already, but it wasn't so simple, and the Chachamim didn't hold like that. But now after this whole story, so then they started trusting Eid Mipi Eid, Eid Echad, Eid Mipi Eid, Isha, Evet, Shifcha, and that's how we passed it. But the Gemara still says the Mishnah, they still didn't hold like that, even though it says that this time that Rabbi Kiva said yes, but Rabbi Lezer Bishua said not. Rabbi Kiva also said Lo Pi Isha, Lo Pi Evet, Lo Pi Shifcha, Lo Pi Krov. It sounds like Rabbi Kiva saying even though Eid Echad yes, but still not a woman and not an Evet, Shifcha, or relatives. It still has to be at least one kosher Eid. That's what Kiva seems to say, that even though Eid Echad is good, but not if they're possible. The Gemara is a kasha that Rabbi Kiva himself, he said a second ago that he doesn't trust the woman. This last line, Rabbi Kiva said, Isha is not good. Rabbi Kiva says that you could trust an Isha. But said Rabbi Kiva, Al Isha Lo, but time you want in a brisa, Rabbi Shimon Allah Zoma Mishum Rabbi Kiva, here's Rabbi Kiva, that's what we want. Isha Nemenes Lavi Gita, a woman could bring her own get. Means that we talk about cases who's believed to bring a get. How about the woman herself? For the woman herself, she says, "This is my get. My husband gave it to me. He gave it to me not that I'm divorced already, but a shliach lo malacha gave me a shliach to bring the get, and she's the only shliach that we have, and she says that my husband gave it to me. So he says, yes, she's believed because kal v'chomer, man nashim shamu chacham meina man eslam meiz bala, and man eslavi gitayan zushin man eslam meiz bala, and odin shen man eslavi gita. The 5 women, we said there are 5 women that are not trusted: the mother-in-law and the sister-in-law and the stepdaughter. Other cases we had mother. We said then we have that tzara. Only 5 women. So over there it said, and then what I said, 7 over there, the Kala and the Aisha South. So over there it says that they're not believed to say that the husband died. We said before the chashur that they might want to mess them up, but they are believed to bring a get. And we said the reason is because since they have a document, so then it couldn't be forged, there's so more evidence. So if the people who are not believed to say that her husband died can bring a get, so the woman herself, she's believed to say my husband died. So kal v'chomer, if she believes to say my husband died, kal v'chomer, she's believed to bring a get. Anyway, what does it say? Rabbi Kiva says the favorish that only the 5 women are not believed. That's that kind of the brisa. And now the Gemara's medayik. He only says that the five women, the mother-in-law, all these cases, these are the cases, the sister-in-law, these are the 5 women that are not believed. That's pretty clear that he holds that a woman would be able to. Women would be believed only because they're 5 women. So how could he say that Rabbi Kiva Amish says that women are not believed? Here he says women are believed. The more answer is no kasha. That there were stages in Rabbi Kiva. You see that first he didn't even trust in Eirechad at all. And now they trusted in Eirechad. This story is talking of the story in the Mar Mishnah. It sounds like before it was a coup. There was at first a time, maybe people also it was a stage that they only trusted Eirechad but not a woman. But at the end it says, like it says in the yellow over here, Rabbi Kiva agrees to that. This thing that I said over here, that was before this came to be. But once the custom came to believe in Isha, so Rabbi Kiva also agrees to it also. And that's the story that it says over here, that only the 5 women are not believed, otherwise women would be believed. The Mishnah continues. Really, it's a continuation of the Mishnah before. The Gemara got inside here, but the printer put it over there. The Amulo of the next Mishnah is a continuation. Okay, get back on again. We're on the bottom over here by the Mishnah. So it says that there was a story. They wanted to show Rabbi Kiva that the woman is believed, because it says the story was that they were going to Tzohar, and one of them got sick on the way. They brought him into a hotel. He was sick, so they went on to Tzohar. What's that?
What's that first word?
On their return.
Oh, on their return.
On the return trip. So they left him because he was sick, and on the return trip they went back to the pundit to ask to get back their friend, and they didn't see him. They said to the innkeeper, "Where's our friend?" No mace lahem. She told to them, "Mace ukavartiv. He died, and I buried him." So that was a pundikis, and the CUS ishto, and they did rely on her saying testimony to marry the woman, that the wife of that lady could get married. So don't you see that a woman is believed? You said that Kiva, well, Pisha, you can't trust the woman. Here it says they trusted the pundikis. Below say kohenis kepundikis, that isha chashuba kohenis means a bas kohen or isha's kohen, that she's a isha chashuba. Rashi says bas kohen, she's isha shemasil lakuna, a woman who's allowed to marry a kohen. Isha chashuba should be as much as an innkeeper. So the Mishnah doesn't say what's wrong with innkeeper. Just because she's an innkeeper, what's the problem? So the Muslim going to say what the case is over there. But anyway, you see, do trust a woman. So that was a kasha of Rabbi Kiva. You say you don't trust the woman's testimony. Here they trusted the woman's testimony. Amalahan, Rabbi Kiva said to them, no, that's not a good proof. When the Pundikis will be believed, I'll trust the Kohenis also. In other words, he says you got the story wrong. They didn't trust the innkeeper. That the Pundikis, she had evidence to say that he died because she brought his stick and his knapsack and the Sefer Torah that he had. So that was more evidence that not because of her testimony, but because of the evidence that she had. I'm not sure. Machabusa asked, what kind of evidence is there? We know that she had all those things. They know that they left him over there. He was sick. They came, they stopped off on the way, and they know that Sefer Torah was there and his stick and the knapsack. They knew that. The question is, what happened to him now? Just because she has it, is that a proof that he died? Maybe.
She went to the pundak after? Or what?
She was the pundak. She was the innkeeper. Again.
Oh, not the wife, the
pundakis. The innkeeper, the one who testified that the man died. So they told him.
She was saying, why would I have his things? If he were alive, he'd have his things.
Right. So is that such a proof? Is it a proof? Like we know that they came to the hotel over there, to the inn. We just don't know where is he. So she said he died. Is that more proof? The fact that she has, maybe it's a little bit proof that he didn't take it along with him. Maybe he was sick. Maybe he forgot it. Maybe it was stolen. Maybe she stole it from him. We don't know. But the keep saying that there's more proof over there than just her word alone. So it's not a proof that we would trust a woman.
And she wasn't saying it for a wife to get remarried.
So we don't know yet. That's the question. We don't know that. And the Mishnah said she was a pundikit. She was an innkeeper, and she said he died, and they trusted her. So
we assume it means that just
testimony
without any kavanah for something.
No, I would think you're assuming that she's a guy.
Yeah.
Why? He's an innkeeper.
She's an innkeeper.
So it doesn't say she's a guy. And the Gemara, at first glance, the Gemara thinks that she was Jewish, a Jewish woman, and she testified. And then the Gemara's mother, what does it mean that that a kohenes is at least as good as a pundikis? Now the question is, what's wrong with a pundikis? That's because she's an innkeeper. Is that a problem? If she's a Jewish woman, testified, the Isham Yucheses, the one who's a good lineage, does that make her any more believed than a pundikis? The Mishnah makes a kavachomer that if a pundikis is believed, the innkeeper is believed, it's a kavachomer that the kohenes should be believed, like a Isha Chashuva, a Jewish chashuva lady. What's the difference about the chashuva lady and innkeeper? What's the difference? It doesn't make any sense in the Mishnah by itself. That's the most kasha, not used to the pundikis. What's wrong with a pundikis? It's a nice, honorable job. She's not any more of a liar. So the Moyen says, I'm a kind of pundikis goya haisa. So she was a goya. She wasn't a Jewish pundikis. So they brought a raya that you see Mashiach Lefitumo of a goy is believed, and that was a couple homer. That if a goy is believed Mashiach Lefitumo, so surely a Jewish woman should believe when she testifies.
Lefituma is it death? What's tuma?
Tuma means her innocence. Mashiach Lefitumo.
Tom.
That same as we had earlier. Mashiach Lefitumo talking in innocence. She came out and saying, this is a stick, this is his knapsack, this is the kever where I buried him. Here says the kever also. And that's why we believed her, because she was a goya, and the kavachom is going to be, if you believe a goya, but it's a kavachom, you should believe also to a woman who's going to say testimony. Also says in the verse like that, she came out saying on her own, not for testimony, it's a goya, and that's why she's only a putnikis. A Jewish woman is going to be believed. But the Gemara says it doesn't sound like that. They asked, where is he? That sounds, as Mishnah says, they asked where he is. So where he is means she's not just saying Fituma. She's not just saying on her own. That they asked her. They want to know where he is. So she's saying testimony. The Gemara says, no. The story started, she started first. Not that they asked her and then she's saying testimony. They saw her crying. And then when they saw her crying, she said, then they said, where is the friend? And then she said, because he died, I buried him. She was bothered by it. She also showed that she was upset about it emotionally. That's why we believe her, not because of the testimony. And the Kavachomer was, if Goya, Yisech Vitum was believed, Kavachomer, then a woman should believe. Another story. Tanu Rabbanan. This is a story for the Masechta. Tanu Rabbanan. A man came to testify that a woman's husband died to Reb Tarfon. Reb Tarfon asked, my son, how do you know this testimony? How do you know that her husband died? So he said, this is the story. I and he were going on a road. And a battalion was chasing after us of Goyim. And he hung on to a branch of an olive tree, and he was able to break it off. And he had a branch of an olive tree, and that was his weapon. And he was able to turn away that battalion. He was able to fight with the battalion with a branch of olive tree. Amarti lo, and I didn't know who he was. We were going on the road, and that's what happened. And then I said to him, this is all part of the testimony of this friend. He said, Aryeh, Yashikoch, lion, Yashikoch, which Yashikoch means your strength should be empowered. That's what the word Yashikoch means. Yasha means to be strengthened, Koach is your power. So he told him, Yashikoch Aryeh. So he said, that's my name. My name is Aryeh. I'm Alim, and I'm not Yudesh Aryeh. I didn't know my name is Aryeh. That's what they call me in my city. They call me, let's highlight this, they call me Yochanan, the Rebbe Yonasan, Aryeh, the Mikvar Shechia. That's what they call me. So I didn't know him, but after the story, he told me his name. And then we kept on going. The Yom Chola Umes, and after a while he died. He got sick and he died. And I'm coming now to tell you that his wife could get married because I know that Yochanan, Rebbe Yonasan, Aryeh, the Mikvar Shechia died. And Reb Tarfon accepted this testimony. This year, Reb Tarfon is Israel, and Reb Tarfon agreed that this is a good testimony, and he allowed the wife to get married. That's the end of the story. It's a testimony, not a goy. This is a Jew, and the question was only, how do you know who he is? I don't know who he is, but he told me his name is Yochanan, Reb Yonasan's son, Aryeh, the Mikvar Shechia. The Gemara continues that Reb Yochanan, in this story, the way it's quoted, Reb Tarfon did not cross-examine this aide. And that's going to be a new question. That's going to be the last question of the Masechta now. Do you have to interrogate and cross-examine the witness? The witness comes, the Eidechet comes to say testimony that so-and-so died. Do you cross-examine him? If Tarfon knows you don't have to cross-examine the witness, but Tanya, there's going to be the same story over again, but here we're going to see that you cross-examined him. Same story. A man came to testify before Tarfon the testimony that a woman's husband died. My son, how do you know this? We were going together on the road, and a battalion was chasing after us. And he held on. Before it was I didn't know this was an olive tree. There it says that it's a fig tree. I didn't know this. Okay. And he held on to a branch of a fig tree, a pashal. He was able to sever it, and he had now a weapon, this branch of a fig tree. He was able to ward off the battalion. I told him, Yashikoch Aryeh, lion. Amali Yafik Ivanta Rishmi that you were you got it right. You got my name right. Chicago knows it. That's how they call me in my city. Let's do this again. They call me Yochanan, then Yonasan, Aryeh, the Mikvar Shechia. Same as before. Yochanan, Reb Yonasan, Aryeh, the Mikvar Shechia. So same story so far. The Yom Chol of a mace. And later on, and this is also why he's saying that the testimony is that he died. He got sick and he died. And I'm coming to tell you that he died. Same story. Amallo, lo kachamatali, Yochanan, then Yonasan, the Mikvar Shechia, Aryeh. Means he was trying to trip him up. Tarfon was trying to trip him up and said, a second ago you said that his name is Yochanan ben Yonasan, the Mikvar Shechia, Aryeh. Not Aryeh the Mikvar Shechia. And Mikvar Shechia is the name of the city. According to the first version, he said that the person is called Aryeh. According to the second version, the city is called Aryeh. Mikvar Shechia Aryeh. So he was trying to cross-examine him as if he said, you're contradicting yourself, because before he said something else. Amalei, no. Kachamati. Yochanan ben Yonasan Aryeh the Mikvar Shechia. Meaning that he was able to hold his ground, and he said, no, don't get me mixed up. I said what I said. That the name of the person is Aryeh, not that the name of the city is Aryeh. He tried 2 or 3 times to mess him up, and he got everything straight, and then Tarfon agreed to marry the woman. But he did cross-examine him. That's a contradiction. The first Bryce calls Tarfon that he did not cross-examine him. The second Bryce has the same story, but he did cross-examine him. Do you have to cross-examine the testimony of the 1A? If my answer is, that's the most contradiction. The my answer is Tanoi, it's a Machlokas Tanom talk if you have to cross-examine him. The Tanya, Ein Bot Kenei Denoshim Bedrisha V'Chatira. Here it says Dibra Akiva, according to this Gersa says that Tarfon holds you do have to cross-examine, like the second Gersa and second story, and the Akiva says not. According to the Gemara takes out the word Dibre, so it says there's a Tanakama that we have no name, and the Akiva and Tarfon both and Modet are Bodek. The contradiction in Tarfon anyway, I don't know what to do. There's still 2 stories. One of them is wrong. Did Tarfon need cross-examination or not? But anyway, it comes out that there's a Machlokas Tanom if you need cross-examination on the testimony that the husband died. The Gemara says, Rabbi Chanina says, but the Raisa both monetary laws and I don't call death penalty, what do we call that? Capital punishment. Both monetary punishment and capital punishment, both of them have to have interrogation of the alien. That should be one law for both of them. The Gemara says mishpach means both din and din and both of them. It means din and also with the rights you should have to cross-examine the witnesses. How come they made a takana not to cross-examine when it comes to monetary matters? So that was that he shouldn't slam the door in front of the borrowers. It means people are going to want to borrow money if the lender is going to know that it's going to be hard to get out his money, because when he's going to bring testimony, they're going to cross-examine his witnesses. It's not going to be so easy to lend money. And then the borrowers want to get money, they're not going to be able to get somebody to lend them. So they made a takana not to cross-examine the witnesses. But my comment, what does that have to do with us? We're talking about marrying off a woman.
And who's the argument between Rabbi Akiva?
And so the question is who the other gear says. According to our gear says Rabbi Akiva says not, and Rabbi Tarfon says yes.
Yeah.
According to the Gemara's gear, both of them say yes, and the Tanakama says not.
I see.
And then Rabbi Tarfon, we have two gears also. Rabbi Tarfon said, but anyway, some say yes, some say not. The Gemara is saying they're arguing in this point. What does it have to do with it? So for what did he say? Din and Nefashis needs to reach about Akira. Din and Mamonis does not need. Why doesn't the Mamonis not need? The Rabbi say yes, but the Rabbi not. So Tin of Belos with love, and he shouldn't close the doors in the front of the borrowers. Since this testimony about the husband dying has something to do with monetary matters, that's the reason why I should be like Din and Mamonis, and you don't need Rishabach Akira. You don't need cross-examination. But the other one who says that you have to have testimony, cross-examination, is because there is something else that has to do with Din and Nefashis, because we're going to say that she's a married woman who's now allowed to marry. I mean that this is Din and Nefashis, this is Chenek. So it has ramifications of something very serious, capital punishment. So therefore, you should have to have cross-examination also. They got to the end of the Gemara. The Gemara is very difficult. They point out that the Ramban asks, just because it has also an aspect of mominous is not a reason why you should be lenient. Everyone agrees that it has to do with din and nefashis. So how come the first opinion is that it's since there is some din and mominous over there, so that's a reason to be meko? The Gemara needs a lot of explanation. So what the Asper brought down from the Ramban is that nowadays we don't have din and nefashis. Nowadays we're not going to do capital punishment. So maybe nowadays the point is that it's only din and mominous. We don't have to reckon the fact that it's very serious, since you're not going to actually kill somebody. So it doesn't have that severity of din and nefashis. And the Gemara leaves us in a focus if you have to cross-examine the Eidim. And Taisa says here, the Kamalan Kaitana, the low boy, I didn't see the halacha, and nowadays I don't know if we're going to do this at all. But here it says that you do trust an Eid to say that the husband does, and you don't have to cross-examine. And we'll leave the last line for the Siyam at after Mincha today. Yes, everybody. It's been a long journey, and Baruch Hashem, we made it. And Bez Hashem, we should be Zolka to continue on the long journey of knowing Torah Hashem, and
Okay, great.
it should be a big shame for everybody, a big care Bez Hashem.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.